very talented young people who have decided to follow.
Then another year it starts again. Well, this is different.
We should definitely be talking to those wonderful people. Once again, we urge you to share the feed on Facebook.
Hi there, I'm Faida, and today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Mexico.
The school and the African kids can come to America and go to school.
Whether UK likes it or not, I have to leave this country.
I became a member and a chief of the Vice Lord all in one day.
All these guys winds around the north at Midway Airport.
Rising beans. Okay, kids, we have had to come to an end of this beautiful set.
It's not about race.
This is the inside account of a week that brought the Rainbow Nation to its knees.
You are in hell. We must.
Hello, everyone. This is the Progressive Mind Show. You are all welcome. We are glad you made it to this episode. This one we have titled the Abolition Institute, and I'm sure you have seen on the flyer what the title is. So this group of people are currently fighting. They have been currently are fighting modern slavery in Mauritania. They will be telling us a story. This is not the first time we've had the Abolition Institute on the show. This is not the first time we've done something with them. It's a continuous campaign, and we are glad to be talking to them this very afternoon. It's November 28, 2020. November 28, 2021. Okay, and we are very excited that we can do this episode with the Abolition Institute. If you just joined us, we are live on Facebook, of course, and on YouTube. We're also live on Twitter. This show is carried live on My Star Radio out there in East Coast. My Star Radio is a non-for-profit. Non-for-profit. The radio show is. My Star Radio is a Pan-African radio station, and they're carrying this show live. We are also working currently to get us on our website. So keep tuned to this space. We shall be giving you more information regarding this. If you just again joined us, or if you've been watching since we started, we want to apologize for the late start. We ask that you share the feed so that we can get the message of the Abolition Institute out there. So I'll go straight to my guest this evening. They are in the person of, let me start with the lady, even though Sean and BAKARY are the co-founders. I'll start with the lady. Lisa Taylor, you are welcome to the show. I know you are a volunteer, an attorney volunteer with the Abolition Institute. You're welcome to the Progressive Mind Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And then Sean Tanner, you're welcome again to the show.
Great to see you again.
My pleasure. Shantana is the co-founder of the Abolition Institute, and then we have my brother BAKARY TANDIA, also co-founder. How you doing, my brother?
Thank you. I am doing great. Thank you very much from New York City.
Welcome. You're welcome, and we are glad to be having you on the show. So I'll begin with you, Sean. You've been with Abolition since how many years now?
Well, we started organizing the Abolition Institute after reading the, after reading the CNN story "Slavery's Last Stronghold," which came out in February of 2012. So next year will be our 10-year anniversary.
Thank you. And I know for folks who have not, there's the folks who are hearing of the Abolition Institute for the very first time. Thanks for giving us that little background. But if you can probably walk us a little bit through your journey, but your first visit to Mauritania after, hearing the news on CNN and all of that, just give us a little breakdown of how the story has been up until now, maybe a summary, and then we can look at other moving parts of the Abolition Institute and the fight against slavery in Mauritania.
So when I came across the CNN piece, "Slavery's Last Stronghold," I was transfixed. I always thought I was somebody who stayed up to date about human rights issues, global issues, African diaspora issues. In college, I'd studied abolition, emancipation, Reconstruction, and of course, we're all familiar with the story about Juneteenth, about areas where, though technically and on paper slaves were free, there wasn't the functional power on the ground to ensure their emancipation. So it was actually election day of 2012, and I was taking a brief break from the campaign around midnight, and just wanted to go on the internet and maybe read something light to take a little break. And then I saw the name of the article, "Slavery's Last Stronghold," and I thought, perhaps this is a Juneteenth story. Perhaps it's about, another place in the United States where people were not freed until well after the Civil War. But then I click on it, and I was shocked and I was horrified that, there exists a place where race and descent-based slavery, not trafficking, although there is trafficking there, as there is in every country, but race and descent-based slavery, people who are born into slavery based on the status of their mother, who cannot leave, and with all the psychological and physical and sexual abuse that existed in our country before the Civil War. And this piece, it really speaks to the power of new media, because it wasn't just an article. It was a photo essay. There were interviews, there were videos, there were interactive maps and facts. And it really helped me as a new reader sort of journey to this place. And, the other thing that was shocking to me was that there was no American group that was involved in any way, as far as I could tell. And, that was surprising to me, because, Americans are very philanthropic. Practically everybody I know has started a charity or 501c3 for some group that they, to fill in a gap that they see in philanthropy. And, nowhere in the article was there a mention of any American organization or individual working on it. The folks who were highlighted in the article were Biram Abid and Boubacar Messaoud, the two leaders of the anti-slavery movement in Mauritania, and Sarah Matthewson, who was the Africa Programs Director for Anti-Slavery International. So I reached out to Sarah Matthewson, and I was so impressed by the story of Anti-Slavery International. They are based in London. They're the world's oldest human rights group, birthed out of Quaker abolitionists in the British Parliament in the 1700s, the group that successfully abolished slavery throughout the British Empire, and which is still working today to that same end. They were doing very meaningful work in conjunction with SOS Esclaves and IRA in Mauritania. And God bless Sarah, she was willing to take a cold phone call from a guy in Chicago she had never met before, who wanted to get involved. And we started working together. Through that network, I met Tanja. Tanja and I met in New York under the auspices of the Open Society Foundation, and then began work. And there's been an incredible amount of progress in the past 10 years. The needle has been moved. There are, I think it's safe to say, there are certainly significantly fewer people in slavery now than there were 10 years ago. But one person in slavery is far too many. And what I learned on my most recent trip there was that despite all the progress, or the talk of progress, in the entire history, the centuries-old history of slavery in Mauritania, the number of slave owners who have ever served a meaningful term in prison, not a day, not endless appeals, not probation, but jail time commensurate with this evil crime against humanity, that number is still one. There's one person that's ever been truly held accountable for this crime, and that needs to end. And any sugarcoating or whitewashing of the situation, I think can be brought to that point. That there needs to be real accountability. And I've been to Mauritania 3 times now. Tanja's originally from Mauritania, so he can give you a good background on the country. And Elisa has studied the disproportionate impact of slavery in Mauritania on women and girls, which is a very important piece. Later, of course, we'll be joined by Mayor Rory Hoskins, who was a recipient of one of our recent awards, and was really the leader in starting the Juneteenth movement in the Chicagoland suburbs. So I thank you for having all 4 of us, because I think we all have a different perspective on the issue.
Yeah. Thank you. Lisa, I'll come to you, Bakary, because I know you have a very strong background to this. I mean, both of you are co-founders. But Lisa, how did you got connected? How did you get connected with the Abolition Institute? Did Sean reach out to you, or you heard about them? How did that happen?
Well, it's a combination of both. So, when you have good friends like Sean, or people that you respect their opinions and respect their ideas, he was able to introduce me to some things. And so that allowed me, in my spirit of volunteering, to become involved and talk about, especially as a woman of color in the legal field here in the United States. Although the numbers say that there are more than 50% women in law school, that's not what happens in the courtroom type practice. And so it was really important for me as a person of color to become involved and to become aware and understand just the global impact of slavery on everyone, especially though, again, focusing on the women and children, because in the country, the slavery is based upon the maternal line. So if I'm pregnant and I'm a slave, my child is automatically a slave. So that speaks a lot to the lack of power that I would have as a woman over choices that relate to my children. And when you talk about additionally the psychological component to slavery itself, Americans can relate it to a Juneteenth concept where you were free, but you didn't know you were free. Yeah. And so these women sometimes are even unable to think about being free themselves, because they will not leave their children. And so Sean had mentioned that CNN piece back in 2012. And I mean, it's really an eye-opener. And the more attention that we can call to the country, to the fact that slavery is still practiced, yes, legally within the country, they will tell you that it does not exist, or it has been abolished, but that's not the practice in the country. And that's why we need to raise awareness and have information out there so that more people can become involved. It's similar to apartheid in South Africa way back.
Yeah.
If I could just piggyback on something that was just said, the legal profession, or the legal community in Chicago, they have been such champions for this cause over the past 10 years. We've had events, award ceremonies, forums where every bar association in Chicagoland has come together, and these are bar associations. And for those who don't know the term, a bar association is a group of lawyers of similar backgrounds. So there's a Chicago Bar Association, an Asian American Bar Association, LGBT Bar Association. Every bar association from every background has come together to help the Abolition Institute, to bring in speakers, leaders from Mauritania, because this is at heart about it's about the law, it's about enforcement, and of course, so many veterans of the civil rights struggle see the comparisons and how you can be free on paper and have no impact in the real world. I mean, look at the 14th and 15th Amendments abolishing segregation and discrimination in the United States from 1866, 1867. Were not enforced for 100 years. And in Mauritania, there was a sort of a proclamation abolishing slavery in 1981, which was ignored. It was criminalized in 2007. More changes were made in previous years, I think in part due to the work of folks on this call and partners. But until it becomes enforced as a serious crime, we need to support every legal avenue possible to make changes. So the Chicagoland legal community has been a huge help to the Abolition Institute, and I thank Attorney Lisa Taylor for being part of that.
Thank you so much for sharing, you two. BAKARY, you, of course, you're from Mauritania. You live in Chicago. If you can help us understand a brief historical background when it comes to slavery in that region of Africa, and then you can help us understand what the current situation is with regards to the slavery conversation that we're having in Mauritania.
Thank you very much, Brother Alinko, Sister Sarah, Sean. Thank you, Mayor Rory. My name is BAKARY TANDIA from Mauritania. Before starting, I would like to remember you that to remind you that today, November 28th, is the celebration of the independence of Mauritania. Mauritania became independent on November 28, 1960. But unfortunately, that day has become a day of mourning for the Black community, for the reason that on November 28, 1990, 28 Black officers were murdered by hanging in celebration of the Independence Day as part of the ethnic cleansing policies. So since then, every November 28, the Black community across the diaspora in Mauritania, they organize ceremonies to pay tribute to those martyrs.
Okay.
Tonight, we have a ceremony here in Brooklyn, and tomorrow we have a rally at the UN.
Okay.
Similar actions are being taken in Paris, in Nouakchott, in Dakar, and some people got arrested and mistreated in Mauritania today. So it was very important for me, to mention that we are supporting the widows and the orphans of those victims who were victim of extrajudicial killings. So when it comes to Mauritania, all those things have to be factored into slavery issue.
Yeah.
Why this treatment? Why this killing of Black Mauritanians? Is because Blacks are seen like less are not valued as a human being, because when you consider someone as a human being, you will not treat him or her in a certain way. So when it comes to the history of slavery, slavery has been going on in Mauritania for centuries. As Sean just mentioned, it is a descent-based slavery, meaning that people are being born into slavery. The issue Sister Lisa raised is very important. In the system, the women are being treated and used as a machine to produce more slaves, because people become slaves through the mother's line, meaning that the person who owns the woman will be the owner of the children. So in the system, women are very, very important, because if you own a man, you just own one slave. If you own a woman, potentially you own an unlimited number of slaves.
Yes.
So, but besides that, it is very difficult for women to escape, because when you have a children, when you manage to escape, what kind of freedom is it when you know that your children are left in bondage? So that is the situation. Since we have been fighting against slavery, laws have been passed, but it is in theory, they are not applied. Slave owners are being protected, while the advocate and activists are being persecuted. As I am talking right now, IRA has an active case of slavery. A young girl given as a wedding gift to the master's daughter. The case is still active as I am talking about. The name of the little girl is Salka, in the region of Ayoun. So when we talk about slavery, we are not talking about fiction. We are talking about real living human being in bondage. So now, if we go beyond that, to answer, your question, in the region of West Africa, particularly in Senegal, in Mali, we still have some type of slavery mentality across, the different communities. Even though slavery doesn't exist as such, people under the control of others, but there is some type of social discrimination with really hinder, their ability to move up, through the social ladders. Those also issues have to be addressed, because all Mauritanians, all citizens of human beings are equal, and they should have and must have access to the same opportunities, and their right must be fully protected.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing, BAKARY. There's a lot of things that you said in there, and all of you have shared so far, which I am sure our listeners are learning about the current situation when it comes to slavery in Mauritania. But BAKARY, quickly help us understand the demographic setup of Mauritania. Is it more, I would say, light-skinned people versus, dark-skinned people? Because you said something about how Black people in Mauritania are being more treated. So is it a color-skin type of situation? So obviously the lighter-skinned people are the majority, and they are the one, and they are the ruling party. Is that what it is?
It is a very interesting, question. The population is about 4 million people, and Mauritania is divided. We have Black Mauritanians living in the south. They include Fulani, Soninke, Wolof, and even we have Bambara, even though they are not, officially listed. We have a Bambara community in Mauritania. And then we have the Arabs who live mainly in the north. They represent about 20% of the population.
Okay.
Then we have the Haratin. So the Haratin are the slaves and former slaves.
Okay.
They represent about 50% of the population. But culturally, they are assimilated to the master's culture. They speak, the same language. If I draw a parallel with the African Americans, the way African Americans speak English, Haratin speak Hassania, which is, the language of, spoken by the Arabs in Mauritania.
Okay.
So if you put blacks together as one black, they represent no less than 80% of the population.
Wow.
So they all are oppressed, Haratin with, slavery, and the Africans living in the south, they are facing land expropriation, racial discrimination, and even deportation, because in 1989, more than 60,000 Black Mauritanians were deported to Senegal. Sean, if you remember, even in May, during our visit to Senegal, we met, with them. We had a discussion, with them in 2017, and most recently in Senegal when we were there in May.
Thank you, man. Thank you for giving us that background. Sean, what has been the strategy? You mentioned that there are less slaves in Mauritania now over the past 10 years, partly due to, or hugely due to, the efforts of the Abolition Institute. Is that correct?
Well, I would say the lion's share of the credit certainly goes to the grassroots organizations in Mauritania that we support as best we can.
Okay.
But it's important to remember the abolition movement. It started decades ago. There are so many people who've spent time in prison, people who've risked their lives, their livelihoods, their families, their freedom to fight against the slavery system, and the credit really goes to them. And
okay.
We try to support them as best we can, and I think that as Americans, and people care about racial justice here, we can learn from their advocacy struggle.
Yeah.
And it's never been about people from America saying, this country is bad, or the people in this country are bad. They're good and bad people everywhere. And there's racism and discrimination and segregation in Chicago and in Illinois and in the United States. So we don't take the attitude that we have all the answers, or that we're morally superior, or one country is morally superior to the other. We try to ask, how can we best support the work of these brave abolitionists on the ground? So it's been clear that more media attention, more of the international spotlight has to be shown on the problem. Mauritania is not a country that's in the news much in the United States or in Europe. That's a challenge. It's hard to raise money and advocate about a topic that people don't know much about before somebody makes a contribution. They want to be well versed in the cause.
What I would like to to add is that Sean would agree with me. The fact that advocates on the ground have a strong partner in Chicago makes a very big difference. It boosts their morale. It discourages the government, knowing that there are eyes from far away looking at them,
right,
paying attention closely what they are doing.
Yeah.
But even in Mauritania currently, people see Chicago as the epicenter of the struggle against slavery.
Wow.
Even some leaders, told me, you have raised hope for us, so you must continue because we count on you. So it has a transformative, impact, on people.
Right.
So I think, that point is very, very important. It must be mentioned.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll come to you. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was going to add to that the other strategy that has been critical, is advocating for more funding from the U.S. government for anti-slavery programs in Mauritania and the region, because of course without dollars, and without resources, it's very difficult to say to somebody that you should leave your master, you should leave the only life you've ever known, and escape. Because if you're telling somebody to escape and they're escaping without any support system, without access to education, job training, food, nutrition, healthcare, think how frightening that must be. You haven't been given the opportunity to develop these skills, and then the idea of just going out on your own, it's nearly impossible, and that costs money. It costs money to run the headquarters, to evaluate the social service needs of people coming out of slavery, to give micro grants to women to run their businesses, to make sure the basic necessities are there at least for a little while before people can start working regular jobs. Champions like Senator Dick Durbin and Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky have gotten over $5 million in State Department funding to anti-slavery programs in Mauritania and the region. And it was very gratifying on our trip in May to physically work out of the office that was created by this funding, and to see so much work being done. I mean, you can go to a place and you can tell if it's functioning and it's firing on all cylinders. Right. And this place was firing on all cylinders. And I think even if our delegation had not been there, that work would have continued apace. But it's expensive, and people have to know that there's some support system out there if they do leave slavery.
The building over there is imposing, towering, building in the neighborhood, and everybody is impressed, by that. So when people are walking and they see tangible, result, like that, it's very, very, encouraging.
Yes.
In the building, they run, a series of, trainings, capacity building, training, women in how to conduct, business. Sean, if you remember when we went to the beach for the lunch, the restaurant is owned by a former slave who was trained in business, and also I must add that Aishana, the name Aishana, whose name was given to the award we give every year, for instance, she has become a very strong, advocate. Very impressive. When you see people who were enslaved, now they are free, and they have made a life commitment,
right,
to fight to free others. It's very impressive.
Thank you for sharing. I was going to thank you guys, man. BAKARY, I'll come to you in a second about a question that I had for you. But Lisa, he made he made a very powerful. So many points he made. All the points are powerful, but one that I stood out to me that I want you to chime in on is the significance and the power that Chicago is having on all of this. And as an attorney in the city of Chicago, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm very proud to be able to say that I am from Chicago and that I am involved. But I think more importantly, the awareness that comes from the legal community, the support. Remember, if you have no way to take care of yourself as a woman who's enslaved, how can you think about taking care of your children and getting out of slavery when your basic needs are being met on a daily basis? Right. So you have some shelter, you have some sustenance. So I think as far as the legal community, just continuing to raise that awareness, continuing to have the conversation about abolishing the practice of slavery that still exists so prevalently. I mean, you heard the numbers as far I was writing down when he was talking about, the Haritines and the Black, population as far as the slaves within the country. I mean, it blew me away, quite frankly. I had read some numbers, but I did not realize that they were as high. And so having, that voice, that impact, that ability to effectuate change, not locally, but on a global scale, is just very humbling.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. And so just to reiterate that point, BAKARY, 80% of the population in Mauritania is basically Black people, but it's being ruled and enslaved by, let's say, 20% that are now Blacks, typically. Okay, and Sean, thank you for sharing the strategy that you are using, because I was going to ask you, how have you been able to, get this job done from afar? Because I know part of your experiences, and I know the most recent visit was very successful and nice, but I know you've had some challenges in your previous travels there, to the point where one of them you had to get Reverend Jesse Jackson to come in and get things situated.
Sure. My first visit to Mauritania was in 2015. It was an amazing trip. It was very, it was a very difficult journey going across large swaths of the country, across the Sahara Desert, to visit Biram Daabid, the leader of the one of the two anti-slavery movements, to visit him in prison. Of course, the bitter irony here is that countless people have served meaningful amounts of time in jail, in prisons, for the quote unquote crime of advocating against slavery, versus the almost non-existent number of people who've been imprisoned for holding slaves. So to be able to visit him in that prison was a very transformative experience, and to see his positivity, his energy. I think he knew, as Nelson Mandela and these other heroes did, that some way, somehow, he was going to be a free man again. Some way, somehow, he would be successful. And while that was a short trip, it was a very meaningful one, particularly meeting the women who had been featured in the Slavery's Last Stronghold piece on CNN. To meet people face to face, there's no substitute for that. The second trip, we had a large delegation of folks from all backgrounds. The hip hop artist, Grammy and Oscar winning hip hop artist, Rhymefest. We had Muslim judges, legal scholars, attorneys, human rights activists, Reverend Jackson's son, Jonathan Jackson, who is the national spokesperson for Rainbow Push, was with us. And long story short, despite all the protocols being followed, despite working with our government, our embassy, the Mauritanian government, a decision was made at the highest levels on the last minute, as we were flying in to not let us in. So we were detained at the airport for about 10 hours. Tried everything we could think of to address the situation and to try to be able to stay. But if the government doesn't want you there, it's not a good idea to stay there. So we rearranged everything on the fly, and we went to Senegal, and we spent that time working remotely with our partners and with the embassy in Mauritania, and meeting with people who had come out of slavery and were in Senegal. What's interesting about Senegal, it's a place of great pluralism. They have both large percentage of Christians, but predominantly Muslim. But both groups work together in harmony, and we were able to travel freely and meet with that exodus of folks who had left a frankly repressive system in Mauritania. Now, I would say on our third trip, we had much more access. We met with many ministers and government leaders in the administration in Mauritania, a wide stretch of folks from civil society, folks in the social services realm who were providing services to people coming out of slavery. And it was interesting is that we would post on Facebook photos and just our commentary on the experience, and some people would write in and say, "You're being fed a lie. There is no slavery in Mauritania. That's a myth. It's made up by people who want to raise money to feather their own nest. It doesn't exist." And during this trip, we were able to write back and say, "No, we met with cabinet ministers of the Mauritanian government who said, we're not denying the existence of slavery. We're here to tell you what we are doing to address it." And seeing that change, I think, is very important. You can't have a full-throated effort to fight something if you don't admit that it exists. And certainly, certainly the advocates and government leaders have different perspectives and different views. But there was no government leader who said to us that it doesn't exist.
Right.
And over the years, the government has started different agencies and programs to address slavery and the legacy of slavery. And a lot of the progress has to be technocratic. It can't just be fighting over a term.
Yeah.
It has to be, real dollars and real programs. And I would say part of fighting slavery is addressing the human service needs of people who have come out of slavery, regardless of how they came to escape. Helping the Mauritanian community, helping people understand that if they escape slavery, they still have a chance for a good life on the outside.
Awesome. I know you have to go.
And another very important issue is that
before you chime in, I know Sean has to leave, so I just want to give him the opportunity to say his last words, and then we will have the show for ourselves. Okay.
Okay. It's a good deal.
Yeah. So Sean, before you go, could you let our audience know, aside you being in the being a co-founder of the Abolition Institute, what else do you do? One, and secondly, briefly, if you can, what would be the topmost thing after everything that we've shared? What would be the topmost thing that you want the public to do in this fight against slavery in Mauritania?
Sure. Well, thank you for that question. I run a communications firm called K&I Communications out of Chicago. Before starting the firm, I worked on political campaigns. President Obama's Senate races, and presidential campaign. Worked on political campaigns at all levels. Also been involved with a number of wonderful immigrant and refugee groups in my home community in Uptown on the north side of Chicago. It's one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the country. Hundreds of different languages spoken, as you know. Folks from nearly every country in Africa, probably every country around the world make their home here. So over the years, I've done work in Rwanda, in Darfur, South Sudan, South Africa. Done some, been involved somewhat in the peace and reconciliation process in Northern Ireland. So African immigrant, African diaspora, refugee issues have always been very, very, very important to me. And again, that is why I was surprised when I read Slavery's Last Stronghold,
Right.
that I had not heard about this before. Another highlight that came out of the most recent trip was learning about a new effort to help women who are coming out of slavery deal with breast cancer. So you can imagine there's healthcare is a very limited resource in Mauritania. It is not a wealthy country, everybody would agree. And so that public health infrastructure is largely non-existent if you're in slavery. And so a woman may come out, she may not know about breast cancer, about what are the warning signs, what are the steps that should be taken for screening, or testing, and then if there is a diagnosis, how to get treatment and how to deal with the social stigma of that. It's a very sensitive topic. Of course, in the United States, it's still a very sensitive topic. You couldn't say the word breast cancer out loud, and until the early '80s, until the Komen Foundation really came on the scene. So we learned of an organization helping Mauritanian women, and very moved by it. Came back, talked to our friends at the Zakat Foundation, a great charity in Chicago funded by American Muslims, and they instantly helped provide financial support to this breast cancer organization. So I've been involved with the Komen Foundation for about 20 years. I was president of the board of Komen Chicago, and it just got me thinking, a breast cancer diagnosis, any sort of challenge that someone faces, these are horrible challenges. But imagine that you're enslaved and you have no access to resources to address it, or to people who even care what the outcome is. So bad things happen to you when you're enslaved above and beyond just slavery. Yeah. And we need to recognize that those traumas take a long time to heal, and we need those supports for people when they come out. As far as what I would like people to do, the power of social media has been just extraordinary. I mean, I don't know that movements like this could be nearly as successful as they are without the ability to share photos and images, videos, and testimonials across borders. Yep. Sometimes we'll do we'll do a Facebook post, whether in Chicago or Mauritania, and we'll get thousands of Mauritanians who interact, who share the post. Yeah. And it's just such an amplifier to show that that the people in both countries care. Yeah. People in both countries are connected, and that there's a real spotlight on what's going on there. So I would encourage people to join the Abolition Institute Facebook page, and if you come across an article, if you come across anything on the topic, go on the page, share it, and we will be having we haven't been doing indoor events because of COVID, but Lord willing, we'll be able to have our major Juneteenth event again in Uptown next year, and we want the whole city of Chicago to turn out. So we want people to spread the word. Also, if there are community organizations, whether they're churches or universities, schools, or even just a neighborhood group that wants to hear from TANDIA, very easy to do by Zoom. Hear a presentation so we can get new activists recruited into the movement.
Thank you so much for sharing. Well, it's 4:54 p.m. CST, and you're watching the Progressive Mind Show. This episode is with the Abolition Institute, and we're talking about fighting slavery in Mauritania, the last stronghold of slavery in Mauritania. Very, very important. Please share the feed so we can spread the message as um, Sean narrated. Social media is very, very important. So we ask that you get actively involved in this campaign against slavery. Some of the stories that have been shared so far are very touching, and I hope that you will be able to share the feed as we keep this fight on. Eddie Montana is watching us. Thank you, Eddie, for joining the feed. Ike Storm is watching. Ike Storm, good afternoon to you. Artemus Gay is the president for the Liberian community here in Chicago. Artemus Gay, good afternoon to you, sir. Christina Miranda, good afternoon to you. Oriela Atieno is watching. Yaira Agboka is also here. Thank you for chiming. Thank you for joining the feed. You can share it as we get the word out with this particular subject matter. Bakary, you wanted to make a point before I went to Sean. But Lisa, you've listened for some time now. Any response or comment that you wanted to make that I may have missed?
No, you always do a phenomenal job. You know that. But what I would share is just encouraging people to become involved. I will confess, as I think I may have shared with you before we came on, I am a fairly new social media person. I am, contrary to popular belief, a lady of a certain age. Thank you very much. So just knowing, I believe my 5-year-old granddaughter can operate my cell phone much better than I can. So just having people aware and spreading the message, because that's how you call attention, especially because social media knocks down those barriers across the oceans and allows us to, really understand the oneness of the human condition. And I think that's, just so important in this particular discussion.
Thank you. He also, Bakary, please don't forget the point you wanted to make.
Yeah.
Let me go to Lisa again. Sean also mentioned issue of breast cancer and health, the issue of lack of general health care in Mauritania, coupled with the fact that there's slavery going on. So the two catastrophes is just overwhelming to hear, let alone experience it, right? And so these issues, how do you feel about it? And I know you're very passionate about these things. So what can be done? How do you feel about it? What are some of the strategies that Abolition Institute is putting in place to mitigate this that the women are going through in Mauritania?
Well, I think the first and most important thing is just to bring attention to the issue.
Okay.
So you've got to remember, when you are going someplace where we are talking, centuries of, a certain belief system. Bakary talked about the fact that November 28th of 1960 is an important date, and he talked about 1990. So recognizing the history of the country, recognizing that the ways of the people are set, as I had mentioned earlier. If I am a slave, I'm not going to want to leave my children as a mother. And so even though slavery, remember, has been abolished in the country by law, but not by practice, technically I should be free as a Black woman in the country, but I am not because of the practice of slavery. So the point is calling attention to that. Sean mentioned that the Institute, and he personally had partnered up with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, which is one of the well-known breast cancer foundations here in the United States. And I think just that recognition, in fact, I was talking to my own state senator, who's done a lot for women of color in Illinois, for purposes of getting the early breast exams, getting the diagnostic tools, whether it's the 3D mammography machines in the Black and brown communities in Illinois. So I think taking that approach in Mauritania would be the best course of action. You know, you've got to get the people there who can make the diagnosis, who can help women understand, you know, self-breast exams, things as far as knowing when you should have a mammogram at 45 or 40, or, you know, what are the ages of the women. So I think, you know, getting the healthcare, getting the women into the thought process of, you know, here are the resources. I'm going to use those resources and better my situation and my family.
And maybe, I don't know what if that could be a strategy you guys already have, getting this little simple educational materials into the country where women can easily have access to and know, because the government is not going to provide it for them. So maybe the Abolition Institute, I don't know if that's a strategy already in place. But BAKARY, please go ahead with the comment that you wanted to make earlier.
The point I wanted to make is really vital for the Black community. You know, since 2011, Mauritania has changed its civil registration system. What it does is all the papers issued prior to that date are no longer valid. So you have to apply again to get your ID, your birth certificate, and then if you want to apply for a passport. So, you know, they are using a biometric system, you know, to make it more protected. But the problem is that there is an ideological element behind it to exclude the Black population. So they have put together a number of conditions that are almost insurmountable for many, many Black people. Well, like you can see, you know, for instance, say, you know, someone who is 75 years old, in order to register, they will ask you to bring the, you know, the birth certificate or your parent or the certificate of marriage, knowing that in the system at that time, those papers, you know, did not exist. So, and if you are not registered as a parent, your children will not be able to register, and they will not be able to go to school or to stay in school. Now we have so many mothers. I have so many videos, women crying to get registered so that their children can go to school. So if you compromise the future of children, you compromise, you know, the entire, you know, the future of the entire community.
Right.
And those people, you know, it's like creating a slave-like conditions for those people, because if you are not skilled, you are not educated, you will be more vulnerable, even though theoretically you are you are free. But you know, if you live in a terrible conditions, what does, you know, that freedom you know mean to you?
Right.
So it and also on the political you know aspect is that since the Arabs represent about 20% of the population, so if you are not registered, you will not be able to vote. So that will translate into some type of fictional majority toward, you know, the elections, even though, you know, you are 80, and you know, if you know, the percentage of people are you know, registered, is not meaningful in case of election. Even though you are the majority, that majority will you know
doesn't mean
will
anything.
not mean anything.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thanks again for sharing. I think we have Mayor Rory in the background. Mayor Rory Hoskins, if you can hear me, can you join the feed? Um, this is the Progressive Mind Show. We are talking to folks from the Abolition Institute, and this subject is very, very important. Fighting the last slave stronghold in Mauritania, slavery stronghold in Mauritania, and we ask that you keep this campaign going on because that's how we can get it viral. It has already got very far. As Sean stated, it's been going on for 10 years now. The fight the fight from the Abolition Institute, at least. Slavery has been in existence in Mauritania forever. According to him, it has been a good fight because there are less slaves in Mauritania than they started, which is a good thing, and we have to keep supporting in any way you can, uh, which includes sharing the feed or talking about it or taking a picture and posting it on social media, hashtagging the Abolition Institute, hashtag slavery in Mauritania. All of that go a long way in helping vulnerable people on the continent of Africa. We will take a short break when we come back. Bakary, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and especially people feel empowered and supported. So very important.
Yeah, you heard that. You heard that. We will take this short break. When we come back, we will continue the conversation with Lisa M. Taylor, who's an attorney, who is a volunteer attorney with the Abolition Institute. BAKARY TANDIA is the co-founder, a co-founder of the Abolition Institute. Okay, let's take this break. We will be back after.
There is a cry. Aglo. Bolingbrook Lighthouse is a network of caring women. We are a dynamic global movement with a single mission to see God's purpose fulfilled on earth as it is in heaven. Our mandate is every nation touched and every heart changed for God. We invite you to our prayer meeting every Saturday and breakfast meeting held every last Saturday of the month from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. via Zoom meeting. For more information, please contact Dickness Rebecca Modi at 630-297-1471 or Reverend George Ofe Ado, our advisor at 630-414-9505. We look forward to having a refreshing time with you in the Lord. Thank you and stay blessed.
Welcome. Chris Toffee Financial Company is ready and available either group or one-on-one basis to help you understand different investment opportunities in America that you can invest in with any amount. The right college account for your children to withdraw money. We can help you to get appropriate life insurance that you can withdraw money or take loan. And if you're in the process of buying or refinancing a vehicle or a house, we can help by building up your credit score. We also repair credit by permanently removing negative items such as medical bills, collections, late payments, foreclosure, bankruptcy, inquiries. We also help all businesses to get business loans and credit by building their business credit. If you need any of our services, please feel free to contact us at 512-999-6724 or chris@christoffee.com or visit www.christoffee.com. Thank you.
To the show. This is the Progressive Minds. We are live with the folks from the Abolition Institute. BAKARY TANDIA is still here with us, as well as Lisa M. Taylor. Lisa, I asked Sean earlier what he does aside who he is aside the Abolition Institute. So I don't know if you want to share as well, so that our audience get to know the other side of you, apart from being an Abolition Institute member, volunteer.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. So in addition to practicing law, doing, trials, I've done pretty much everything. My little standard line is except for bankruptcy, divorce, and I had to add antitrust. So just a broad base. I am currently a candidate for a judicial seat here in Cook County, Illinois. So hoping to take the next step in my professional career, I've been asked and supported by some jurists. So that is the road that I am on today, my friends.
Thank you so much. Any particular activities outside work, sports, outdoor activities? We just want to know more about
Yes,
Lisa.
of course. So my big thing are the little people. So I do a program. Sean had mentioned earlier the different bar associations becoming involved with the Abolition Institute and this fight against slavery. So I do what's called Lawyers in the Classroom. So we go in and we teach the kids about different legal scenarios. I have to make myself chuckle. I go back this week and I gave homework. So I don't know if I was really allowed to give homework, but I did anyway. So we'll see if the students welcome me back. Additionally, I work with another program where we provide services in a church setting. It's called Administer Justice. So those are my big volunteer things. And then you heard me mention 5-year-old love of my life. That would be the granddaughter. So she keeps me busy with her activities. She does swimming and ballet. So those are my extracurricular activities.
Thank you so much. If I don't know if I missed it, you probably said it earlier. How long have you been practicing law?
For over 20 years. So this is technically my 21st year of practice.
Awesome. And what specific area? You said everything apart from divorce.
Apart from those 3 areas. So
Bankruptcy.
Right now I'm doing more tort stuff. So personal injuries, things like that. Contracts.
Awesome. The reason why I asked is that there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to human rights. Can you help us, maybe just give us a little breakdown of what those are, and maybe just helping us giving us an explanation to some of the misconceptions? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Well, with regard to the human rights umbrella,
yes,
we're talking more of what people here in the United States think of as the Bill of Rights. Those top 10 rights that you have that are enumerated in the Constitution. Things like the freedom of press, the right to be free from seizure, illegal searches. So the Bill of Rights are the 10 amendments, first 10 amendments to the Constitution. So when we think in a legal context of human rights, we talk about those particular amendments to the Constitution as encompassing human rights. So remember, our country was, that preamble. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so perfect when it was formed, but we're still working on it. So in context of human rights, just being free from bondage, that's important in this particular context. So we know on a global scale, Sean had made a reference earlier that, trafficking of people is something that still happens. But bondage, as far as slavery, is something that has been frowned upon for centuries now. However, remember I said earlier, and Tandy said it also, that it's only been, quote, abolished legally in the last 30 years. That's really significant when you talk about human rights, the right of someone to be free to make decisions for his or her or their own lives.
Yeah.
And so in a legal context, it's really important to bring light to the issue of the slavery that is still practiced. And remember, Sean said only one person has been prosecuted under the law for violation of the law.
Yeah.
So that needs to be a change. But it sounds to me as though this civil registration system is going to be sort of what they did to us when they enacted all of those laws to prevent Blacks from voting. The poll tax, the literacy tax, the questions you had to ask.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. You are exactly right. It's the same intention, the same strategy to prevent the people from fully enjoying, their fundamental rights. So on human rights, what I would like to add at the international level, we have what they call the International Human Rights Bill, which is comprised of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the two international covenants on political and civil rights and socioeconomic and cultural rights. So everything is contained. That is the international framework for
and I think just that recognition. In fact, I was talking to my own state.
That was a technical glitch on our part. BAKARY, please pardon us. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah. But okay, so we just introduced. I'll come back to you, BAKARY TANDIA. We have Mayor of Forest Park, Mayor Rory Hoskins, on the show. Mayor, you're welcome, and we know that you had other mayoral duties, so you're welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm sorry to be late. As I was prepared, I listened to BAKARY talk about the civil registration in Mauritania and how limiting it is with respect to people's opportunity to either get education or to pursue, jobs, vocation, other opportunities. We learned about the difficulty in inheriting property faced by the Black people in Mauritania. And I have to tell you, when I was there, I felt like it was like the 1800s, but I think the 1800s may have been like in the United States, except that you had modern technology. We had cell phones, we had cameras, we had the internet. It seemed like we were being, tracked, so to speak, not in a hostile way, but you look at the limitations on the Black people. I was with BAKARY TANDIA visiting the home or the building of one of the freedom leaders, Mr. Biram. And, we talked to the men who had survived the genocide against the Black soldiers and the fact that they're not able to have any type of reparations or to bring any type of lawsuits for the human rights atrocities committed against the Black Mauritanian army officers. We listened to the stories of their female survivors. They cannot bring suits against the government. And what was one of the most striking things is that even though the country is mostly made up of people who are Black, either Black Africans from different ethnic groups, different language groups, or the Black Moors, the Haratin that we learned about. All of the billboards that we saw, advertising things, all depicted, the light-skinned Arab people or the white Moors who dominate the culture, who dominate the government, who control the weapons and the guns, and who have been the slave holders, for generations. And so it was very important to come back to the United States and to kind of share what we learned in Mauritania and what we learned about Mauritania.
Yeah.
And to participate in forums like this to where we can educate, people here in my country, in the United States, about what's happening in Mauritania. Just this evening, before I came here, I was with a group of residents. They don't look like us. These were white Forest Parkers, and I was talking to them about what I saw in Mauritania and how there's a lack of any kind of representation to make the Blacks feel like full members of the Mauritanian society. So, I don't want to go on, but I just kind of wanted to echo what I think Tanja may have been saying and talking about the civil registration laws.
Thank you so much for. Go ahead.
If I may, thank you very much, Mayor. Now you are an expert on Mauritania. Yeah, I should, take my, my break now.
Yeah.
So it's a very good, point. And, talking about, the extrajudicial killings, that has been recognized by the government because in 1991, the National Assembly of Mauritania passed an amnesty law to protect, the perpetrators, so that, the families of victims will not be able to file, any complaint, against them. And most recently, one general was appointed at the UN in Central Republican, with in charge of, as a commander of, the peace around the capital Bangui. We organized rallies here in Paris, in Nouakchott, in Dakar, and now his nomination is under review. He was involved in those killings and torture. So I wanted to add that too, but the mayor just said.
Yeah. Thank you for chiming in, BAKARY. And Lisa, just let me know if you have a follow-up comment or something, so I don't miss it. Okay. Mayor Rory, thanks again for sharing. How did you get connected with the Abolition Institute?
I met the founders of the Abolition Institute several years ago. First, Sean Tenner, and then later BAKARY TANDIA. And we've had the chance to talk and exchange experiences over the last couple of years. But actually, I attended an event several years ago at a law firm in Chicago where they had some of the Mauritanians who were receiving awards. I did not know BAKARY TANDIA and Sean Tenner at the time, but I attended the function because the subject matter was of interest to me. I think this must have been 2015, possibly 2016. But when you are working in these circles of social justice and raising awareness to slavery, past or present, it's pretty easy for paths to cross.
Yeah, thank you. We'll take two comments on our feed, and then we can continue with the show. You're watching The Progressive Minds. This is where we build our community through pertinent conversations such as these. We are also very active in our communities, and we want to remind all our viewers that you can always donate to the Progressive Mind Show on our website, thepmsshow.com. It goes a long way to keep us in doing what we're doing, to keep us going in terms of our operational costs, and also sustain the show and keep us coming up with topical issues, very important topical issues such as these, week in, week out. We broadcast every Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. and on Sundays from 4 to 6 p.m. CST. You can watch us on Facebook Live, on YouTube. We are live on Twitter as well. Currently, we are also being carried by My Star Radio, a Pan-African radio station on the East Coast. We are working very soon. You will be able to hear the audio version on our website. We're also available on podcasts. So keep in tune with The Progressive Minds. This is from Ayana Rivers. Thank you for bringing this issue to the forefront. And this one is Ida Abraha. Good job, Senna. This is an eye-opener for me. Thanks. Also want to take the opportunity to announce this, that the Progressive Minds Media Group is going to be partly sponsored by the Progressive Minds Media Show, and Rainbow Push Coalition is going to be doing what we call the exchange ceremony next year, February 5th next year. The exchange ceremony is about bringing the diaspora together. It's about coming together to celebrate our culture and to help us heal as a people. It will be the 4 or 5 communities that make the African diaspora in the Chicagoland. But you can come, whatever you are, if you want to come, feel free to come. This is going to be a very huge event. And again, it's designed to culturally and spiritually, connect the African diaspora. We'll also be doing a special honor for Reverend Jesse Jackson. So keep this date in mind, February 5th next year. is coming on live. You'll be seeing more of this on the show. As we continue with the Abolition Institute fighting slavery, fighting Mauritania is the last stronghold of modern day slavery, and we're doing this in order in with the hope that folks who are going through modern day slavery can get can be freed. Would enjoy will enjoy a little bit of the freedom that many of us are enjoying today. And so please help share the feed. Again, take a picture, take a video, a small portion of what we're doing, and hashtag Mauritania, hashtag slavery in Mauritania, hashtag the Abolition Institute. Let's get it going viral on social media so we can bring the world's attention to this. Attorney Lisa and BAKARY, maybe you guys can respond to this question. Are you working closely with the UN, or I know you are working with some international bodies, but what international bodies are you working with, and is the UN involved, and how impactful is that going? I don't know if you, Lisa, can respond, or
I'm going to let BAKARY answer that one.
Okay, BAKARY.
Okay. Yeah, UN. We have been working with the UN at different levels. Participating in UN UN meetings, and because of the advocacy and the increasing pressure, UN has sent at least 4 or 5 special rapporteurs to Mauritania.
Okay.
On racial discrimination, on slavery, on all the aspects of human rights violations in Mauritania. They reported back. The UN Human Rights Committee has made recommendations, and still the government of Mauritania is not has not been compliant. We are still putting pressure on Mauritania. The same thing with the African Human Rights Commission. Since 2000, the first time the case of Mauritania was presented at the international level was at the African Union Commission in Algeria. Mauritania was, the government of Mauritania was, condemned for the human rights violations. You have slavery, you have mass deportations. In 1989, Mauritania deported its own population to Mali and Senegal. They are still there. Mayor Rory, we had a meeting with them in Senegal. For almost 30 years, they have been living in refugees camps. Those are people who were working for the government. They are Mauritanians, but as part of the ethnic cleansing to decrease, the African or the Black population at the minimum, and also to make the land vacant, because the land has become a major, economic issue in Mauritania. By deporting them, people can just occupy that land, and it is a very, very big issue, because since those people have been deported, there is a new population occupying those villages. More than 300 villages were destroyed in Mauritania. Everything is very well documented. I have the list made by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. It is unbelievable. Sometimes, when you hear for the first time the situation in Mauritania, you say, no, this is an exaggeration. It is a reality. It is a reality, and people have to keep fighting. And I am so glad that in the US, we have been able to find strong partners and people who had similar experiences, who have the concept, the context to understand the situation into details.
Thank you so much. I asked earlier, aside being a co-founder of the Abolition Institute, what else, or who is BAKARY TANDIA?
Bakary Tanja have been working on immigrant issues as policy advocate. All the major rallies in Washington, D.C., in New York, working for comprehensive immigration reform, on housing issues, on driver's license for undocumented people. Really, I have been at the center of this, and I had served for 10 years on the board of the New York Immigration Coalition, which is a major organization in the U.S., and it is a coalition of more than 200 organizations. And besides that, I am a regular commentator on African affairs on the Voice of America. Okay. And I am passionate about sports. Mayor Rory and myself, we love martial arts.
Okay. Mine is soccer. But before we go into sports competition, let's let Lisa come in because she has to leave us. Lisa, you've been part of the conversation since we started. Your last comments, last words as you leave us, and I know definitely we will be getting you back sometime on the platform for another conversation. But your last words, if you may.
Just post, because awareness brings change. If you don't know about a situation, you can't do anything about it. Once you become aware as a citizen of the world, you have to act. Thank you.
Lisa is a lady of few words, but very smart.
Well said.
Very kind of you.
Lisa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We really appreciate it. As Lisa leaves us, we'll take a short break. We shall be right back. We're back on the show, and we have Asnian, Ashia Hasnian. Ashia Hasnian. Friend, we haven't spoken in a long while, so I'm even, forgetting to pronounce your name correctly. So it's on me. My apologies. I will reach out, but I know I know it's been the work, and it's been everything else. We've all been very busy. I know you were doing a great job with empowering women. NFP organization, which is a domestic violence an organization that fights or works for victims and people who are going through domestic violence. And I know you've been very active in the community, giving out, doing some give outs and campaigning on breast cancer and creating more awareness on domestic violence and helping people too. So Ashia Hasnian, keep doing what you're doing, empowering women. You can look them up on social media. Empowering Women NFP, Empowering Women NFP. So Ashia, thank you so much for joining the feed. Boateng Ashia is also here. Thank you for joining us. If I miss your name, please pardon me. It's not on purpose. Sometimes I'm not able to see all of them. But Mayor Rory Hoskins, by you joining the Abolition Institute, and you spoke about it passionately as if you were an African or an African immigrant, or even part of the people. Now, that's some of the questions some of the conversations that we've been trying to have on the show. The need for the diaspora to see each other in the same light because of our connection, and to begin to work together for the good of black folks everywhere, because we seem to be struggling, even on our own continent, in our own territory, we seem to be struggling. So by you being on this project, or working with Abolition Institute, have you, I know it's been a short time, but have you noticed any peculiar challenges, and what are your optimism? What's your optimistic level? What's the level of your optimism when it comes to fighting slavery in Mauritania?
So I see it as a long-term effort, right? A long-term effort. One of the things I shared with the men and women that BAKARY TANDIA and I spoke to when we were at Biram's organization is that even though black people in America have been formally free from slavery, since the 1800s, it was another 100 years of legal discrimination and de facto discrimination. And so when you have a powerful group, it's only their own nature and their own interest to maintain the status quo. So it's going to be a lot of hard work to educate people outside of Mauritania about what's happening in Mauritania.
Yeah.
It was a little bit sometimes frustrating to come back to the United States and to see, my black brothers and sisters here saying, well, we're still enslaved here. And so why are you over fighting in Mauritania? We're not enslaved here. We don't have full equality here yet. There's still discrimination in the United States, but that applies to other ethnic groups, not just blacks. I mean, this is a rough country. So anyway, it's a long-term struggle, but
yeah,
I'm optimistic that we can bring the attention of the markets to the plight of Mauritanians. I mean, big companies. One of the things that I'm attempting to do is to talk to people I know in business. Not necessarily small business owners, but powerful business interests. Some of whom I know from my past work in Illinois, working for the Illinois Department of Commerce and working for one of the large, so-called Big Four accounting firms, trying to appeal to people's ideals. When you look at the fact that a lot of the discrimination in Mauritania is with the consent of, some of the clergy, the Arab Islamic clergy. I'm told they fall back on Quranic tradition to justify slavery and the oppression of blacks in Mauritania. So, there are different interests, black Christian leaders here in the United States and also white Christian leaders here in the United States who can help us rally the support of political leaders here in the United States, political leaders at a higher level than myself. I'm talking about senators and congressmen. So whether it's the imposition of sanctions, whether it's convincing, the Office of the United States Trade Representative to, direct resources towards our allies in Mauritania. Groups like SOS Esclave, people who are training, former slaves to thrive in business in various vocations. We want to best support our allies who are on the ground and continue to learn how we can be helpful from this end.
Powerfully said. Yes, BAKARY.
Yeah, talking about the religion and Islam.
I was going to ask you that. Go, yeah.
Okay, I read your mind. So the thing is, they are misinterpreting and misusing Islam to keep people submissive. They make people to believe that in order to have access to heaven, you have to obey your master. And this is just to use the religion, the Quran, to serve themselves. And which is completely wrong, completely unacceptable. That's why Biram Da burned the books of the Rit Malikit, the books codifying and justifying slavery. And until now, those books are being used, to train judges and the law enforcement. So you cannot expect those people to apply the law to free slaves when they are already indoctrinated that slavery
it's okay,
is normal. There is a code, and it is part of the religion. We have to apply it. We have to abide, by it. And when Biram burned, those books, he was arrested, and there was, rallies asking that he be, killed. Had it not been the international mobilization, he would have been killed.
Wow. These are compelling stories, and we are proud that we can be part of this story, and I think that we can all make a huge impact, like Lisa said. All you might have to do is just share a post or take a picture or take a snippet of what is going on and hashtag it, and because we need to get international body on this subject to help the people of Mauritania. I had a follow-up question for you, Bakary, but let me go to I want to know, I'm forgetting this question. It's a very pertinent question, something to what you said regarding the politics and religion regarding how politics and religion is being used in this state, because sometimes people have an argument against religion in general, but then like you said it correctly, it's not the religion but it's how people are using it in Mauritania. And that becomes very, very difficult because the people have been indoctrinated to accept it. So how do you accept people? How do you get people out of slavery when they feel like it's okay for them to be enslaved?
And especially those who are, supposed to protect, to enforce the law. Of if they are indoctrinated in the way that they
have now,
accept and digest, those unacceptable laws.
Yes. The question that I was going to ask you is AU. Yes. What parts? How is AU impacting in this fight in Mauritania? If fight against slavery in Mauritania?
Yeah, really, AU, I would say it is AU is completely disqualified. To be involved, in this.
Okay.
There's some type of solidarity, among the head of states, and because if you are not doing well or the right thing in your own country. You cannot point your finger to anyone, and otherwise, they will make you pay back.
If you say AU is disqualified, how?
No, because most of those presidents are corrupted.
Okay, so AU, you were saying that AU is not actively helping to fight slavery in Mauritania.
They are not even talking about it. And you have never heard any African president making a reference to the situation in Mauritania. It's like it doesn't exist for them, even though they know that this has been going on for centuries.
But Bakary, this is how it would have to be asked. How can we change that narrative? Because we've known this about AU, and I asked you because I asked you on purpose because I already know they're now doing something about it. But you are on the ground, so you probably have some links with them. So thanks for confirming what I was thinking. How can we, as Africans on the continent, especially in the diaspora, help in making AU work for Africans and for the continent?
It is through educating the civil society. The different civil societies have to connect and work together.
Okay.
For instance, in in the Sahel, there is a network of abolitionist movement in Mauritania, in Senegal, in Niger, in Burkina Faso.
Okay.
They work together. So by working together, people can put pressure on their government.
Yeah.
And the case in point is currently the relationship between France and Africa, for instance. The young people on the continent have decided to say, no, this is not going to work.
Okay.
And in Burkina Faso, the civil society has blocked the army convey to Niger.
Yeah.
It means that the president on the continent, their best protection is their own people.
Okay.
So by educating them, by raising awareness between the different civil societies, this is the only way.
Yeah.
Each country or people in each country can question its leaders. What are you doing about the situation in Mauritania?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Mayor Rory, feel free to chime in on this. This is an African conversation, but no. Technically, I understand firsthand as an African some of the inefficiencies of the AU, and it's a struggle. But there's also this other conversation where the diaspora comes in, diaspora Africans, and we are talking and we are saying, and I tell friends all the time, the African American community is huge and powerful in so many ways, and so they don't have to fight our fight on the continent. But is there a way that we can collaborate our efforts, just like BAKARY is saying, so that we can mitigate some of the suffering of our people, of course, here and back home?
We certainly cannot wait for governments to do the work that we have to do as people, as thinking humans who care about each other.
Yeah.
Part of the brilliance of organizing our delegation is that TANDIA and Sean Tenner, brought some artists along with us.
Yeah, okay.
And without spoiling the surprise, I'm being silly when I say that, but one of our delegation members is a very prominent musician.
He mentioned his name, so it's no secret. He already said it.
So he's working on a project, right?
Okay.
And once that project drops, I think it's going to go a long way in educating, Black Americans as well as members of the diaspora about what is happening. I'm really excited to hear about the exchange that you mentioned with Rainbow Push, because our brother Ramfest also has a connection to the Rainbow Push organization, and maybe he'll be done by February the 5th when we get together for the exchange. But the work that he was doing with John Trax, I believe, was very powerful, and I believe it will open eyes in ways that speeches by politicians or intellectuals may not be able to do. But maybe working in tandem can be a little bit more effective, and then opening the doors to some of the conversations with the some of the business leaders and the market leaders that we hope to reach. I was surprised to see how much Chinese influence was in Mauritania when we were there. There was a big billboard right across from our hotel that was promoting the fact that China had provided vaccines to Mauritania. I'm wondering, well, where's Pfizer? Where's Moderna? It's like the U.S. has to do its part.
Yeah.
It's up to us to call on our government to do its part. And we do have some influence. I mean, there's a Black congressman serving as the first ever chair of the Foreign Relations Committee and the U.S. House of Representatives. So we'll have to educate, the congressman there. I'm starting with my own congressman here in Chicago, but we are building a means to do this, and like I said, it's a long-term project.
I love that. I love the spirit. I love the spirit, and I think the connection, the connection of the African and the African diaspora, it's super important. And when we bring it together, I think it's going to do well for our people. This is the Progressive Mind Show. We're going to be wrapping up very soon, but let me talk to this fine gentleman regarding their karate skills. All right. Both of them are martial arts lovers. So BAKARY, are you black belts? What kind of belt are you?
Yes, black belt.
Okay.
But now I do more jogging, exercising. But that is really my passion.
Okay.
But I've been so busy with advocacy, traveling.
Okay. So okay. Let's see what we got.
This is from a long time ago.
Which one are you? Are you the guy in the middle?
In the blue.
Okay.
In the blue. This was taken in 1994. So a long time ago. I was healthy and slim back then. I'm an old man now.
You still are.
There's gray hair here that wasn't here back then. But no, it's a great sport. And
no, there isn't much a difference between the picture 94 picture and this one we're seeing, apart from the fact that the clothes are different.
So brother, you should feel safe, huh?
Oh yeah. Wow, beautiful.
I felt very safe in Mauritania.
Also, now tell us, as mayor of not Rory Hoskins, mayor of Forest Park. Tell us, it's an opportunity. I would say, for viewers who don't know about Forest Park, and some of our African viewers, or even on the continent, tell us the uniqueness about Forest Park as a mayor.
Forest Park is located just outside of Chicago. Forest Park is what used to be a virtually all-white suburb, mostly Italian, German, Irish, where Black people started moving in the 1980s and the 1990s. Today, Black people make up about a third of Forest Park. It's a very well-educated community. It has a fairly diverse leadership. I'm the first Black person to serve in the village government, and I had the honor of being picked to serve as mayor in 2019. And the beauty of Forest Park is it gave me a platform to talk about, one of my passions, promoting the Juneteenth tradition, which of course is America's, Emancipation Day or Abolition Day holiday. Juneteenth originated in the South, in Texas, where I grew up, but by becoming an elected official in Forest Park, I was able to share this tradition with my neighbors in the west suburbs of Forest Park, and eventually in other parts of Illinois. And so it's taken hold here, and it's something that we intend to share with our brothers and sisters in West Africa, Mauritania, and other countries in the diaspora. We have to realize that we didn't just get this way, right? Black people weren't born to have a low life expectancy or to have very little wealth. We were part of thriving cultures at one time, and we found ourselves on the wrong end of the barrel of a gun and enslaved in this country. But we're working to get it back, and it comes to unity, and it comes to understanding ourselves and working with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. That's why I'm glad to work with BAKARY TANDIA and Abolition Institute, and looking forward to the exchange at Rainbow Bush and to continue the discussion to build awareness, whether it's about things happening here, or things happening in Africa.
Awesome.
That we need to be outraged about.
Powerfully said. Well,
so now to be on the side of Brother Alinko, Mayor Rory, when we were in Senegal, we went to the Gorée Islands. So, how did you feel about that visit?
I'm glad I finally made it to Goree Island. I'd heard about Goree Island. I'd heard all about it. I'd been in Africa once before. I'd been to Ghana in 1999, and I didn't get to go.
Was I in Accra?
Coast Castle. Excuse me?
Were you in Accra?
I was in Accra, yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I never made it outside of Accra. I was there for the African American Summit that had been convened by Reverend Leon Sullivan. And
Oh, yeah. That was when J.J. Rawlings was president.
Yes, yeah. I saw.
I was a young man then. I think I was a young man then out of high school, something like that. Yeah.
It was neat seeing all those African presidents. So anyway, going to Mauritania and Senegal was only my second time in Africa. So I'm glad to have made it to, one of the slave fortresses to feel that history.
Yeah.
But what was very ironic is I actually bumped into a neighbor of mine from Forest Park, a white guy.
Wow.
Well, he was with a group from Oak Park, which is a nearby community. And to see a neighbor who literally lives around the corner from my home,
right,
who doesn't look like us, but he was at Goree Island in La Maison des Esclaves. So
wow,
it's a small world, and I believe we can make an impact. We just have to keep working and be very deliberate about what we're doing.
Awesome. Mayor Rory, do you speak French?
Un peu.
Okay. That tells me that tells me everything. All right, guys. It's been very thought-provoking, informative, I would say uplifting. But I'd like you all to give us your closing remarks as we bring this conversation to an end today. But it continues. Please, let's make it continue on social media. If you're watching, please hashtag slavery in Mauritania and all of that. Let's get words going. I will start with BAKARY TANDIA. Please give us your closing remarks for today.
Yeah, I would say it has been a blessing for me to meet people like Mayor Rory, Sean, yourself. My point is that when you have a strong conviction with vision, no matter how little are your resources, you will meet the right people to keep marching toward your target, toward your mission. In closing, most recently I have been approached by an organization in France trying to help a student for the very first time who did his master's on slavery in Mauritania. So they are trying his interest in doing his doctorate on slavery. So we are in the process of raising funds for him so that he can achieve his goals or his objectives. Okay. And that will be very, very important because he is from different African countries. So it is an answer to the question you are asking, and connecting different people on the continent to work together and to produce the necessary synergy to make the change.
Thank you so much. Mayor Rory.
Yes, going to Mauritania was a very moving experience for me. And it told me what I need to focus my efforts on is improving the situation in Mauritania. We're not going to see it change overnight. Abolition in the United States took decades and decades and decades.
Yeah.
And the progress wasn't necessarily apparent to the people who were working on it. But, over time, change can be made. And so working with the artists, working with the intellectuals, working with the business community, I believe that people fundamentally want to see, justice. And so I think the people will do the work. And let's just keep working. Let's just keep working
and also keep the spirit up and do what you can on social media. This has been the Progressive Mind Show. Remember that we're coming back here on Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. and then every Sunday as well, 4 to 6, unless circumstances beyond our control. Again, we are working very hard to get our live audio version on our website. Your donations to this platform goes a long way in keeping us sustained and also improve on our programming, and so we can also, and more importantly, keep it going on a weekly basis. Again, watch our website. Watch out for the space for other events coming up. Definitely, we'll be putting those regarding our promo materials regarding the exchange for coming up February 5th, 2022. Very soon. Watch out for the space for those. Well, I would like to thank Sean Tanner, co-founder of the Abolition Institute. He was here earlier. Another co-founder, BAKARY TANDIA, and then Lisa Taylor, attorney Lisa Taylor, who is a volunteering attorney with the Abolition Institute. Mayor Rory Hoskins, he is in charge, or he's the mayor for mayor of Forest Park. Thank you guys for coming to share the story of the Abolition Institute. What you have done, basically, you summarized all the work that has been done for 10 years now and what is being currently done. We really appreciate it. Visit the Abolition Institute website and their Facebook page for more information. Remember to keep hashtagging and sharing so we can get help so we can be part of the fight against slavery in Mauritania. This has been your host, Senna, aka Alinko. We will be here coming Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. BAKARY, I would have to call you so you can teach me a few a few blocking skills. Well, you are in New York, so Mayor Rory is close to me. So
Yeah,
we can have some tutorials. I have to put on some gloves and some band-aids and make sure he doesn't break my bones.
Exactly.
All right, gentlemen, have a wonderful Sunday. I'm sure there's a game going on. I watched my soccer game earlier, Chelsea, and so hopefully you are watching your footballs and other games on TV. Well, have a wonderful rest of the day. We shall be seeing you coming Wednesday, 6 p.m. Guys, have a good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Rory. Thank you, Brother Alinko.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
See you next week, Tanja.
Okay.
All right.